Meet Femi and Amina, a Nigerian couple married for 10 years, but their home was silent, no laughter of children to fill the void. In their society, the weight of expectations bore down on them like a heavy burden. The whispers, the stares, the pity, they felt it all. Mockery from friends, pressure from family. It seemed like everyone had something to say about their childless state. But Femi and Amina knew where their hope lay. Vimy and Amina had passed through a lot friends and family. They even started doing things on their own. They used to do evening walks in their neighborhood while holding hands. On the other side, they saw a couple walking on the other side of the road with their kid, and they looked very happy. Now Femi and Amina looked at each other in the eyes and giving each other hopes that one day everything will be okay as they continue walking down their neighborhood. The pressure mounted. Friends suggested medical treatments, while others pointed them towards traditional healers. The pressure continued as friends suggested medical treatments, while others pointed them towards traditional healers. They are telling Femi and Amina not to lose hope because there are many ways to get a child. You should not worry, because we can really help you and you will continue to live a happy life like others. One close friend, Tunde, offers to take them to a witch doctor. There's someone I know, a powerful man. I can take you there and I'm sure he can help you. Amina was almost believing in what Tunde was telling them, and she was like wanting to pursue the husband to try listening to what Tunde was advised them. We trust in God, Tunde. No shortcuts, Femi said. Despite the temptations to seek other means, Femi talked to Amina and told her, let's wait for God's timing, because in God's time, the Lord will make it happen. So Femi and Amina clung to their faith and continued to worship, believing in God. In their darkest hour, they turned to God. They began attending church regularly, pouring their hearts out in prayer. The road was hard, and even offers from friends to take them to a witch doctor came their way. But they refused, and trusting in the power of their faith, they casted their burden to God and stopped telling friends and family to help them pray. Because at this point, they really knew who the true friends were, and they should not depend on others for their own problem. Instead, they turned into God, who they knew was the only one that answers prayers. Vimy's head was bowed down as whispered prayers escaped his lips. His words were fervent, desperate even, as he pleaded with God for the one blessing that had eluded them for so many years. Amina knelt beside him. Her eyes were closed and her lips moved in sync with her husband's prayers. She had no more words, only the deep, aching desire of a mother's heart that had yet to hold her child. There was no anger in their hearts, no bitterness, only faith. Faith that one day God would answer. Faith that one day their prayers would no longer be words whispered in the dark, but joy shouted from the rooftops. And so they stayed there, kneeling, waiting, hoping, trusting. For they knew that in his time, God's answers would come. One day, as Amina was preparing herself to go to work, she started feeling nausea and somehow weak. But she just finished preparing and went to work as usual. She didn't even tell her husband, Femi, that she is not feeling well. After a long day at work, Amina unlocked the door to her home, feeling the familiar weight of exhaustion settle in. She dropped her bag by the entrance and slipped off her shoes, heading straight for the kitchen to grab a glass of water. But as she walked, something felt different. A small wave of dizziness washed over her, followed by a strange flutter in her stomach. She paused, placing a hand on her abdomen. Could it be? After all these years? A mix of hope and fear surged through her. She hurried to her bedroom, pulled out a pregnancy test from the drawer, a habit she had abandoned long ago, and with trembling hands, she followed the instructions. Minutes later, as she stared at the 2 clear lines appearing on the test, her breath caught in her throat. Tears welled up in her eyes, and a smile slowly broke across her face. After all the waiting, the prayers, the doubts, she was pregnant. God had finally answered her. As Femi walked through the front door after a long day at work, he immediately noticed something different about Amina. She stood in the living room, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of excitement and tears. Without saying a word, she approached him, holding something small and delicate in her hands. "Femi," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion, "I have something to show you." She slowly opened her hands to reveal the pregnancy test with two clear lines. For a moment, Femi just stared at it, his mind racing to catch up. Then realization dawned and his eyes widened with joy. Amina nodded, tears streaming down her face as she whispered, "We're going to be parents." With a shout of joy, Femi wrapped her in a tight embrace, lifting her off the ground as they both cried and laughed, overwhelmed by the miracle they had been waiting for so long. After discovering the miracle growing within her, Amina and Femi's lives transformed overnight. The once quiet home, filled with whispered prayers and hopeful tears, now echoed with laughter and joyful anticipation. Every morning, Femi would place his hand on Amina's belly, speaking to their unborn child as if he were already there. Amina would smile, rubbing her growing bump, feeling the flutter of life within her. They decided to keep the news to themselves for the first few weeks, savoring the secret miracle that was now theirs. But eventually, the joy was too much to contain. One Sunday after church, they invited close family and friends for a small gathering. As everyone chatted and laughed, Amina and Femi stood together, hands clasped. Femi cleared his throat and with a wide smile said, "We have something to share with you all." The room fell silent. Amina took a deep breath and then, with tears in her eyes, she said, "God has answered our prayers. We're expecting a baby." For a moment, there was nothing but stunned silence, and then the room erupted in cheers, hugs, and tears of joy. The same people who had once questioned them now celebrated with them, praising God for his faithfulness. As the months went by, the couple's days were filled with preparations. They spent weekends visiting baby stores, carefully selecting tiny clothes, soft blankets, and all the essentials for their little one. Back at home, they would wash and fold the baby clothes together, marveling at how small everything was. Ademola would hold up each outfit and imagine their child wearing it, while Amina carefully organized everything into drawers and bags, ensuring they were ready for the big day. Through it all, their hearts were filled with gratitude and excitement, knowing that the moment they had prayed for was drawing nearer every day. When the time finally came, it was the early hours of the morning. Amina woke Femi with a gentle nudge, whispering, "It's time." The excitement and nerves filled the air as they hurried to the hospital, bags already packed and ready by the door. Femi held Amina's hand tightly the entire drive, whispering prayers of gratitude and strength.